Hi guys, it's Kendra from Crafty Kendra, and today I'm going to show you how to make this card. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do is bring in our card base, and our card base measures 7 inches by 5.5, and we've scored it at 3.5 inches. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our Perfect Polka Dots embossing folder to emboss one of the sides. Alright, here's the big shot. I have it on tab 1 with one of the plates on top. I've lined my card base's score line with the edge of my embossing folder. Now I'm going to take the other clear plate and put it on top and run it through. Then we get a nice embossed card front. You'll notice on our sample card I have this strip here, and to make sure that I can get this to adhere evenly flat to the card base, what we're going to do is we're going to go and count up 1, 2, 3 rows of dots, and we're just going to go through and we're going to flatten out one row of dots with the bottom of our foam folder. To make sure we got a good crease on our card, we're just going to flip it over and crease it. And the reason I'm creasing all of the card is because if you just crease over here, you're going to smash down the one row of dots more. But if you go through all of it, if you do smash the dots, it's going to be evenly flattened down a little bit. But we're going to go ahead and set this aside. Next thing we're going to do is bring in a 3¼ inch strip of crumb cake cardstock. And mine's pretty long. We're not going to end up using all of it, but I have it here, and I have it on top of a piece of scratch paper. And now what we're going to do is ink up our wood green background stamp with our Versamark pad. And then we're just going to stamp. Just like that. And then I'm going to ink it up again. And stamp again. Alright. I'm going to set that aside and bring in my little paper trimmer. And we're just going to cut 3¼ inch squares. So remember, this piece is already 3¼ inch wide, so now we're just going to cut them 3¼ inches long. And you're going to need 6 squares. These are going to become our Scrabble tiles. Okay. Now that we have our tiles here, going to bring in my stamps from the Just Perfect alphabet, which is on the retiring list for this year. So if you want it, make sure you get it before the end of May 2012. We're going to go ahead and stamp our letters. And we're going to have this say, bring in the sample for you guys, love you. So we're going to go ahead and stamp the letters for that. So we're going to need a V. O. And I'm just using a basic black classic ink for this. You could use StazOn if you want to. You could emboss with black. Alright, and my letters aren't quite perfect, but it doesn't bother me. Still gonna spell out the love you. And you could always use the Stampin' Up! J if you wanted to make sure you got them completely centered, but I think it looks just fine. I'm gonna go ahead and sponge the edges. And this is a sponge that I used with Early Espresso. And I haven't re-inked it. This is just whatever's left in there. Just giving the tiles a little light dusting around the edges so they look more finished. Alright. You can tell I need to retire that sponge dauber. It's starting to flake off on me. Alright, so now I have all my letters. I'm going to flip them all over. Bring in my Stampin' Dimensionals. And I'm using the edging pieces that I have here. And I'm just going to put one on the back of each tile. Okay. Press them down. And set them aside. Now we're going to bring in a scrap piece of Whisper White, and it measures 5 3/4 inches long. And it doesn't matter how white it is, because we're going to bring in our scallop border punch. And I'm going to go ahead and punch it. Rid of those extra bits. Now we're going to bring in our tabletop cutter, and you can use your trimmer too. I just moved that one out of the way so I don't have it. And you're going to see that my piece measures 2 inches, and what we're going to do is we're just going to cut it at 1/4 inch. So we're just going to make the strip we cut off with the scallops be 1/4 inch wide. And when we do that, we end up with a really super thin border there. We're going to go ahead and put some snail onto the back of it. You don't have to do all the scallops, but since I cut my piece a little extra long, and there's a reason for that, I'll show you in a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so I put snail on those. I'm going to bring back in my card base, and I'm going to line it up so that I kind of have even scallops on either side. since this is a polka dotted background, so long as you got your polka dots kind of straight, you can use those to make sure that you get your border on straight too. Okay, I'm just gonna lay that down and check. Now I have a 1/8 inch by 5.5 inch piece of basic black. I'm just going to put a little bit of snail on it in places too. We're going to line it up just on top of that piece of scalloped white. Just like that. I'm going to bring in a pair of scissors and just trim off excess. I'm going to set that back aside. I have a scrap piece of pink pirouette and my small heart punch. I'm going to punch it out. Have a scrap piece of Blushing Bride. And Blushing Bride is one of the retiring colors this year, so it's also saying goodbye at the end of May 2012, just like the punch we're going to use, which is the heart-to-heart punch. And whenever you punch this out, you only need to worry about punching the one that's filled with cardstock, the medium-sized heart there. So we're just going to punch that out. Set that stuff aside. I'm going to go ahead and put snail on the back of that heart, set it aside. Bring in our little small heart and put a piece of a dimensional on the back. Remove the backing. Just going to layer the hearts on top of each other and make sure I set them with the bottom side up. Now I'm going to remove all the backers on my little Scrabble tiles. Now I have all the pieces on my fingers. I'm going to go ahead and start with E. What I find easiest to do when I'm looking at the card is just to lay them down and not press them down. Kind of get an idea of where you want them to go. I think I kind of like that placement. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use the dots to help guide us. Okay. And then working off the O, we'll place our Y and our U down. Alright, and when we have our sentiment where we want it, we're going to bring our hearts in and place those down. Just like that. And that finishes off that card. You could always dress it up with a little piece of 1/8 inch black taffeta ribbon, or any other embellishments you like. It would look really cute if you added a little rhinestone or maybe some crystal effects on top of the heart. But I like to keep it simple. Alright, the last step to make this card ready to mail is to put the inside layering piece. And this is just a piece of Whisper White that measures 3 inches by 5 inches, which gives you just a little bit wider border than normal. But I like that since it's such a simple card. I thought that it would be really nice to give it that extra wide border. And I did sponge the piece of Whisper White with that same sponge dauber we used on the tiles, and I didn't re-ink it. It was just a really light dusting of color. So that's all I have for you guys today, and I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.